Hello, hi, good afternoon everybody. I'm very happy and honored to be here, the only guest from another country, so I'm very lucky, and I'll tell you something about what's happening in other member states of Europe, and some statistics, some interesting public programs, and some of the changes. We see kind of changes in policies regarding aging workforce. Well, he told us what the network was about, member states, and I'll show you in the next slide all the member states. Sweden is more or less an informal member of the network, so you see 16 regions and member states. And we are all from ministries of social affairs and employment, and also from ESF managing authorities, learning from each other about what are successful programs. When we look, I had a look at the statistics, and from all European member states has the highest employment rate for people between 55 and 65. So I would like, rather, I ask you several times, Swedish colleagues, how do you manage to do that? So I think you have been talking about, possibly about problems today, but I can say that you are doing, in a general way, very well. I asked several times why it is so high, and it's, I think one of the reasons is the very high labor participation of women in this age group in Sweden, which is quite different from in other member states. You can see Sweden is here, and then you have Germany. I think it's a bit, the employment rate of older workforce is about the same in Norway, and Iceland is even higher. But it is very high. And also the exit age is quite high. It's about 64 point something. Netherlands and Switzerland have also very high exit age from the labor market. I looked up. This is a very airplane view. OECD, the International Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, did a very interesting study. It's called Live Longer, Work Longer. And this is the summary of the recommendations from 2006. And this summary is still very valid. And the OECD is now doing a review. This is a result of a study with 21 members of OECD, and they are now starting a new review. And what my network, because there are three main areas for policies, and these are government policies mostly. The first one is to well, simply to cut off the exit routes, to make it financially attractive to work longer by reforming pension systems, abolishing early retirement schemes, but also cutting off exit routes to very long unemployment benefits or invalidity pensions. The second one is to tackle barriers on the side of employers, and you have probably been discussing this today. You have the anti-discrimination regulation, but also implementation and all kinds of projects. It's also interesting that several member states are abolishing the mandatory retirement age. That means that when you reach your pension age, you are not automatically dismissed. And if you want to work longer, even if you are entitled to a pension, you can. So you have the same dismissal rules as any worker. And this happened, I think, in Norway and in the UK. And that's very, that changes the idea that when you get older, you are a less good worker. So this is very, very important measure when we speak about discrimination and etc. So you have also economists who say that salary systems based on the length of your service are not good. Older workers are sometimes more expensive than younger workers. So OECD says, recommends to change these practices in the collective labor agreements. And then they also recommend to avoid measures based only on age. And that's very important because, for example, in the Netherlands, we have specific measures in the collective labor agreements. When you are older, you are entitled to more holidays. And last year, our employers and our trade unions made a pact when we reformed the pension system and from 65 to 67. They made a pact to normalize the labor market position of older workers, and they also, one of the measures is to abolish specific age-related measures, like also measures that make older workers more expensive. So this is interesting. Then there's this measure, it's about labor protection. When you look at the economic crisis, which is called the Great Recession by the OECD, you see that in this last recession, unlike other or previous recessions, young people have more problems with unemployment than older people, and you have seen many companies retaining older workers in the companies, also with shortened working time measures. OECD recommends to balance employment protection and to give more rights to outsiders and less rights to insiders in the labor market, to balance it. And then encourage social partners to promote best practices in all kinds of ways. And then the third, and that's the one we have been looking at as an ESF-Age network. These, because European social funds often pay programs for skills and training and public employment services. So it's about equal participation in training, independent of age, and programs helping public employment services to help older unemployed. You all know that older people stay in employment longer. But once you are unemployed, it's extremely difficult to get back into a job after 50. And it's in the case in many countries. And improving working conditions. And part of that is also flexible arrangements, more flexibility in working conditions. And you have been discussing probably working conditions today. So we have been looking mainly at programs at awareness-raising campaigns, programs aimed at a workplace, improving employability and workability, and programs aimed at improving transitions from job to job or from unemployment into employment. And we have also made a kind of list of tools. I have sought out 4 examples of countries. I'm not going into details, but if you wish more information, you can always go to the website or to our website, which I'll show you. But I chose them because they have 3 typical approaches, different approaches. You know, Germany was one of the first member states to postpone retirement age a long time ago already. And when they did that, they knew older workers would have trouble to stay in the job or to find a job. So they started with two very big programs. The first one is INQA, Initiative Neue Qualität der Arbeit. It's about working conditions and also motivation and productivity. And they work with 30 networks from business and experts and trade unions, social partners, branch networks. They develop good best practices in projects. They disseminate them, organize all kinds of events, and they reach some 2,000 companies in Germany. The second program is about getting 50 plus unemployed back to work. And that's a huge program. It costs 350 million euro a year. And they now have, I think, 90% of all job centers in Germany are part of regional employment pacts. And they are financed on the base of achievement. So each pact has about, on average, 800 placements of all the people into jobs. And they say this has been running a very long time. And they say this because in the beginning nobody believed that it could work and that all older unemployed could get back to work. They were often long time unemployed. And it's changed, it made a very big revolution also in the public employment services. So France is very special. France is, they had a pact between social partners and they changed it into a law. And every company in France with more than 50 employees has to submit a plan, an action plan for all their workers, senior workers they call them, to the ministries. And if they don't, before a certain date, they have to pay a fine of 1% of their salary costs to the pension funds. And it's quite special. I know that, and they have to, they had some 6 different items on which they had to choose 3 out of 6 items, and they had to have concrete action plans. And these plans have the same force as collective labor agreements. So employees can go to the, they can be reinforced, these plans. It's very special. I have more information, but I think time is too short. Then you have the UK, which is very interesting too, because in the UK, with the introduction of the guideline on anti-discrimination on age a few years ago, employers were very frightened, and they started a big campaign. So they have 2 things which makes the UK special. That's they are very they are fighting, and they call it ageism. I saw it in Swedish in one of your papers, the Swedish word. That's typically UK, very much anti-discrimination and anti-ageism. And the role, the very important role of employers, very big and important employers in the UK taking the lead in the campaign, and that's the Employers Forum on Age. And I told you already about the abolishment of the default retirement age in the UK. So these are some examples. When I have a look at what's happening, developments in the different member states, I must say member states are in a very different stage. Some are only starting with a discussion about retirement age and age discrimination, and others have been running programs for 10 years or more. What I see now in some of these countries, like the UK, I think, I don't know about Sweden, but you are already one of the winners. That's you see kind of change of the attention from the curative approach, target group approach, fighting discrimination of older workers, etc., which is still needed and has to go on, into more a life cycle approach, which means that when you don't want to be more expensive or less skilled or have problems on the labor market when you are 50 plus, you have to start very young, and everybody is growing older. So it's all about lifelong learning, better health at work. Health at work in many member states means is mostly about psychological problems and good management and how to motivate employees more than physical illnesses. So that's a new development too. Job mobility, when you have been working doing the same job for a very long time, you don't learn anymore. You are when you have when your company has redundancies and you have to find another job, it's very difficult to find another job. So learn how to be more mobile, facilitating job-to-job transitions between sectors. You have shrinking sectors and growing sectors is very important. And last but not least, the flexible working conditions to combine working with other duties. Especially when you get older, you have to care also for, often you have to care for older or for sick parents, etc. So I'm almost there. This is something about a network. What can we do for you as network? It's you can find information. I'll show you the website. We are having a conference in June to check, because the member states are starting to write a new European Social Fund programs for the period 2014 and 2020. The regulation ESF is still being discussed in the European Parliament and with the Council of Ministers, so it's not decided yet. But we try to inform the ministries in all these member states about what to do with the aging workforce and the relation, because often you get the question with the economic crisis, we have such a huge youth unemployment, especially in the southern member states, and how to deal with this discussion you often have between jobs for young people and keeping older people longer in employment. Well, to finish, the website and how to subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.